Over the last couple of years, there has been a massive anger and hatred from gaming communities who have played the AAA games that were released in such a haste motion. When you look at those games, it is easy to why, because they are often unfinished products which are finished in such a haste motion. But these games are everywhere. When you look at a broken game in a PlayStation Store or Steam page for a reason, you can always find a new section, an indie game that is full of bugs and missing features. But the reaction from gamers that these games are buggy mess is different. When it's a AAA game, it's not always because of the gamer's fault. Okay, we can think that gamers are the main culprit. They build up so much hype. They think about all of the games and they talk it about every day. Like when you go into the subreddit of r/Cyberpunk game, for example, you can see there has been thousands of comments and new entries on that subreddit even before years of the game's releasing. So it is easy to see the hype, but actually the hype comes from how these games are marketed actually. Because when you make a product of a game, of a video game, you actually have to sell the experience. How the game mechanics are working, how deep are the characters, how the choices matter, how the NPCs will interact with the player, and even the soundtrack matters when you are trying to sell a game. But it is different if you make a game and show only the gameplay, how the game works actually, the fun part, than making promises after promises about how this game is different than the other game, and you will see every possible choices that matter, sort of. So if you want to make a game, make a different game. If you want to make a game and try to sell that game, it is usually years before the games actually be made. But it is actually years before the game's released. You usually have to try to sell the game before you show them at E3, for example, because of the pre-orders. Everybody gotta earn something in order to make something. But it's different when you try to sell a game that doesn't even exist and will not ever exist. That's what CD Projekt Red did when they're trying to release Cyberpunk, the game. They were like, okay, we got this game, an open world RPG with futuristic mechanics, futuristic driving mechanics, self-driving cars, choices that matter, and there's a big rebel rocker boy played by the biggest Hollywood stars, Keanu Reeves, and sort of. So they tried to sell an impossible task. They were trying to sell 10 games at once, but they didn't have the time to finish such a game because it is a daunting task to make 8 games or 10 games at once. So what did Cyberpunk do? They have released an unfinished product and people were furious. Even today, when you look at the Cyberpunk game subreddit, you'll see the most upvoted entry of that subreddit is the missing features and the things that were promised but not delivered. So why is this hate? This is what CD Projekt Red officials did when they're trying to market their game. They said, well, our game is not gonna crash, we're not crunching like other studios, and you'll find everything that matters in the game. You can buy different houses and you can buy every little things, and you can even interact with every NPCs with a meaningful way. That's not how the game was released at the first place. They fixed it, that's alright. They fixed the most part of the promises they made. But when the game was released 2 years ago, it was like their fault for not having these features because they already promised. So this is what makes a good marketed game from a poor marketed game in the first place. The good marketed game shows only the experience and let the gamers do the fun part, imagining how they're gonna feel at that game world. But Cyberpunk did the opposite. They tried to say everything will be in this game and you will expect many more. Let's take a good example from Santa Monica, the makers of the God of War series. When Santa Monica released a God of War demo at E3, a 10-minute long demo, they had 1.5 years to make that 10-minute long demo. But after that they showed the demo, they only had 1.5 years again to make that a 30 hours long game. So yeah, they had to work hard, they had to crunch perhaps, but you know what they did? They delivered that promise. Because they only showed the gameplay and let the gamers do the best part, imagining how they're gonna feel like when they're walking on Kratos' shoes. So this is the difference between a well-marketed game and a poor one. If you wanna show how your game will feel like, you can only show the gameplay and let the imagination done by the gamers, because they are the best at imagination, believe me. But if you make so many empty promises and if you fail to deliver them, gamers will come on you with a hatred. So, there's also one side note that I want to point out. Both CD Projekt Red and Bethesda's hyped very much but failed to deliver. There's one side note that I want to... The main difference between CD Projekt Red and Santa Monica is actually how they approached marketing. You know, CD Projekt Red is also the publisher of the game, not only developer, whereas Santa Monica Studios relied on professionals from Sony, you know, the PlayStation network, to do the daunting test, how the game is communicated through various medias such as social media and their creatives and so on. So what lies in this little secret between how the games marketed is different from one another is actually one of them choose professionals to do the work. While gaming communication might be a boring or daunting task, it is also a lifesaver. It can kill a game or make a game. So here at Autoloot Gaming, we want to help and try our best to help gaming studios as well as brands that want to reach the gaming communities, their potential customers. The fact that there are only a handful of professionals in communications in gaming, we believe it is crucial for our job in the gaming scene.